want to say that I think that the game did a really good job of filling the ship with background NPCs who all have, you know, typical dialogue about being excited for their vacation and what have you. And if you try to listen to everyone, you'll find some unique conversations. Like, I don't know if you heard them because, again, I'm a completionist, which means I actually try to listen to everybody. But there's this group of girls in like the rest bench room. And by their tone of voice, it sounds like they're like gushing over hot boys. Like they're like, oh, like super gushy kind of tone. But if you actually pay attention to their dialogue, you find out that they're really talking about like their enthusiasm over the ship's engine.
Oh, baby, what I wouldn't give to hear the purr of that engine up close.
And can we talk about that frame? I like my ship's well built and this baby is thick.
I wonder if we could sneak into the engine room without getting busted.
It's worth a try, but security's looking pretty tight. But at least we can feel the ship's pulse from here.
Like they're like really excited, like engineering types or something.
So they sounded like Orange County.
Yes.
But they weren't.
But they were talking about like the mechanics of the ship and how it was built. I don't know. Things like that. I think it's fun that the developers throw in there. I think it was more, in this case, it was more funny in concept, right? So like appreciated in its attempted irony, but of course a bit cringy at the same time as these background NPCs can kind of be.
I'm literally speechless!
But you know, par for the course.
Yeah, there was another one I passed by, and if you paid attention, it gave you a premonition of what's going to happen later in the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That's why I listen to everybody, because there are things like that sometimes.
Like normally these kind of things when I like, that's why I have this, right? Like I take my notes, like I'll pause the game and like take my notes.
I did the same thing. I know. What kind of gamers does that make us that we're like note taking? And then in my recording, you can tell when I'm taking notes because like Cloud will be standing there doing his like breathing and rotating legs for like 5 minutes.
If you happen to park it by an NPC, which I seem to always do it, and they just keep
then
talking
you hear
in
the
my
same
ear.
loop over and over. And
Yes, exactly.
The sooner we're back on solid, stable land, the better.
It's nice seeing the Queen's Blood scene thrive these days, but I liked it before it was popular.
The sooner we're back on solid, stable land, the better.
But I have to take my notes because I won't remember if I come back
totally.
months or weeks later and try to like give it back. So yeah, I remember hearing something like that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because if you think about the older Final Fantasies where they didn't have voice, right? They were just text.
And you had to actually select them.
You literally had to go click on every person to put together the story.
Exactly.
So like,
but they didn't have nearly as many people either. I mean, it was like,
right, it was easier.
You go to a town that's supposed to be bustling and it has like 3 people.
And that's what was great about back then is like, if you got lost and you didn't know where you were going, if you went back to the most recent town,
just talk to randos
and just talk to like 6 people, you could piece together where you're supposed to go next. Because inevitably there was one NPC that was like, have you seen that forest to the north?
Right.
I've heard there's creatures in there that drop golden eggs. And you're like, oh, that's where I need to go.
And you bring up a good point because now, because there's so many NPCs everywhere, you can find those conversations, but you have to get through a lot of like pointless conversations.
Yeah, a lot of junk. And you have to get like in just the right angle.
So you can hear that one instead of like the one over here.
Right, because otherwise it sounds like they're like talking to you from the bottom of a bathtub. If you don't turn the right way, you know what I mean? So like that's another annoying thing about like this game engine they're using to develop this game is just like beyond annoying. It's like, you guys need to upgrade, okay?
I think it's Unreal 5, isn't it? Or is it Unreal 4?
I don't know what it is, but for some reason I feel like I'm always malpositioned that I hear like this. It's almost like the Charlie Brown thing, but not exactly. And it's like, oh, this is so annoying. But I understand where it's like one of those where like they have to figure proximity in. Otherwise you're just going to hear everybody talking in one cacophony.
Right. Then you'll hear everyone when you're in a physical room.
Right. So it makes sense.
I actually don't mind it. There are times where it doesn't match and you're like, wait a minute. Or you're trying to listen to dialogue that's like actually programmed into the party scene at that moment when you're walking through somewhere. And you're passing by NPCs that you have to pass and they're louder than the dialogue you're supposed to be hearing, you know? So there are issues there. But for the most part, it didn't bother me. It just meant that I had to listen to a lot of cringe in order to get to some meaningful NPCs.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
There was only like 1 or 2 things that I heard that were of actual value.
Right.
The rest of it was just
the
garbage.
rest is just like, oh my gosh, I love that Sure.
But then again, think about it. If you're on a cruise or a casino boat,
that's how it's going to be.
90% of what you're going to hear is just trash. There might be like two people having like a relevant conversation that you might be interested in.
But if you like walked up to a random person on an actual cruise ship and like stood dangerously close to them in their bubble and just like listened to them, they wouldn't continue the conversation. They'd be like, dude, go.
Well, not just that. They're going to be like, security.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone come get this guy out of here.